Okay, hi everyone. I see that people are already starting to join. Just wanted to say that thank you so much for time and again joining the Indian Lawyers Association and Kelp webinars. I know that some of you are regulars and you attend every month. So really happy to see that repeat audience coming through. So thank you so much for being a part of these webinars. You make it as much as we do make it, and it's a pleasure to bring this for you every month. So with that, I would like to start today's discussion. Today we have something very interesting in store for you. Again, one of, I think, the topics that is always in the limelight. We get this at Kelp so many times as well that what to do in this. This is a very frequently asked questions. So today we are exploring the question of to be or to not to be involved. What is the HR's role in POSH cases? So, May 2026, we are in the middle of the month, and we recently had a judgment that stated that an HR person cannot conduct a preliminary disciplinary inquiry to determine whether a case is posh or not before letting the committee handle the situation. Right? So, because of that, we also got a lot of queries whether we should have HR members in our POSH committee. How involved with will an HR member be in a committee? What is the role of people resource management when it comes to POSH? So there were all of these questions, and to answer those, today we bring you this webinar in collaboration with Indian Lawyers Association and Kelp. A little about ILA and Kelp before we get into who we have today. We have a very exciting panel. So before that, I would like to talk about the Indian Lawyers Association. So Indian Lawyers Association, ILA, is a voluntary professional organization for the legal professionals in India. Now, ILA has been formed to shape the future of legal profession throughout India. It's committed to enable opportunities for quality professional development, support and enhancement of equality in the legal profession, and also to promote a delivery of justice. So they aim to advance the rule of law throughout India and strengthen legal profession by offering access to practical resources, and also they have a huge network of ILA chapters nationwide. Now, Kelp, from where we are bringing in these thought leadership from our Center of Excellence. Kelp is established in 2013, and it's a forward-thinking organization committed to revolutionizing workplaces into safe, happy, and inclusive environments. So we believe at Kelp that employee well-being is integral to your organizational success. So we Kelp endeavors to set new standards in your people management or HR practices and overall organizational performance. We are a pioneer at Kelp in simplifying legal complexities in POSH, and along the way, we aim to demystify the less understood subject of diversity, equity, inclusion, that is DEI. So with that, I am bringing today's amazing panel members. We have with us today um, some really interesting insights coming in. So, firstly, I would like to introduce Advocate Aparajita Chandra. She is a senior litigator and dispute strategist with nearly 25 years of experience and more. And she's currently serving as a partner of litigation and dispute resolution at Vidikrit Legal. She brings a deep expertise in employment disputes, workplace misconduct, and compliance advisory, and she offers practical insights on POSH and HR. Any introduction is actually really short for the esteemed panelists today, so I'm going to keep it short and just say thank you so much, Aparajita, for agreeing to be a panelist with us today. So we are delighted to have you here. Hello.
Hi, Meenakshi. Thank you for having me over. Thanks a lot.
Yes. And along with Aprajita, we have somebody very dynamic. So, since we have one person who is coming in with the legal professional background, we also have Aditya here, Aditya Ralapalli. He's a senior seasoned human resources professional with over 16 years of experience. He specializes in strategic HR management and leading large scale operations within top tier global organizations. Currently, he's driving people strategy at Wise India Payments Limited, and their distinguished career includes a foundational 14-year tenure at Amazon and 2 years at Uber. Aditya is known for designing and executing innovative people programs, and they excel in unique organizational challenges of current fast paced tech and fintech environments, right? So, with this, I think we have a very wonderful panel combination of somebody who is bringing in the legal expertise and somebody who is also talking about the HR side of things and how the company looks at this. So, little about the topic before I get into the discussion that we are going to have today. So we will be discussing whether HR should be involved in POSH, how much should an HR member be involved, what is the role of human resources that is parallel to the internal committee, and how do we manage confidentiality, documentation, and communication proceedings? And what are the risks of excessive HR intervention? Do we have to, if I'm an IC member, do I have to, say, for example, give a report to my HR professional team at every stage of my inquiry? Or how much do I maintain confidentiality of the case? Supporting complainants and respondents. Again, people will, regardless of how many ICs you may have, people will reach out to your HR professionals for any kind of complaints regarding harassment. So, how is HR's role important and pertinent in creating these preventive measures and policy implementations? And what are the practical challenges that we are navigating right now in startups, corporates, hybrid workplaces, and so many decentralized teams? So, how do we navigate this IC requirement and how do we go about it? And we'll also look at the best practices for legally compliant and survivor sensitive workplace responses when it comes to POSH. So, with that, I would really like to kickstart our discussion for today, and just thank both the panelists for bringing themselves here and agreeing to like spend some of their valuable time with us. So, thank you so much, Aditya and Aparajita. It means a lot that you agreed to be here.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. Hi, all.
So we'll start with the main question, which we started with. I think, what role does the POSH Act envision for HR departments during the complaint proceedings? So we can start maybe understanding a legal understanding of whether there is anything that the HR department or the company needs to look into, like the employer needs to look into when it comes to POSH. What is the role? Aprajita.
Yes, thank you, Meenakshi. So, see, HR's role definitely is important, but it is more of a supportive role, rather than investigative, because you already have the IC panel in your organization. Firstly, of course, for all the entrepreneurs and startups as well as established, because a lot of times we come across even established companies who do not have an IC panel because they always think jab hoga tab karenge, right? So, but that is dangerous at times because these incidents can prop up anytime. It is not that, it is written somewhere that this is the day and time when this will happen. So, firstly, have your panel in place, have all the requirements fulfilled as per law, because now we know that even the employees are very sensitive. Even in the smallest of things, they feel that it's a posh case and they would, approach the panel for it. HR, as I said, is supportive and it should ensure that the policies are complied with. So that is where the HR's role comes in. It should, for sure, support employee welfare. Legally, we all know what are the requirements. The HR is also aware of it. A lot of good companies would have an internal legal team as well. they would have an in-house team. But if you do not have an in-house team, I would suggest you should always have some legal hand in place for such situations, which can guide you to conduct such incidents properly. Otherwise, everybody is going to land in court ultimately. So that is not what we envision when we start off with it. So that is how I feel HR should, at least look at the compliance part and then support the entire system.
Yeah,
Aditya can add to
I
it.
yeah, I would like to add. See, even if you look at the POSH Act, right, like it talks about prevention. That is the place where HR can bring in a lot of value because you're the enablers of workplace culture or making the managers and the employees comply to the requirements of the act. So preventive measures is something that where you can definitely jump in and do some creative stuff. So you don't need to shy away or even think about like can I do it or not. So HR definitely can come and do some preventive measures. So in our organization, to give an example, so recently we have come up with employee champions. It's more like giving them POSH training and making sure that they flag any cultural gaps that are coming up. So
Absolutely. I
these kind
think
of things.
that's a very important point, like, having the preventive measures in place. End of the day, the responsibility of employer comes from the HR department because it's not the board who is sitting and deciding what to do on a daily basis in the organization. It is the HR head, it is the HR members who are sitting and envisioning on a daily basis what is the like it's they are the hands and ears and eyes of the IC on the floor, if I were to put it simply. So I think very well brought up that prevention aspect does come under HR. Now there is another very frequently asked question. Can an HR professional be part of the internal committee? Because this has divided the community, let me tell you. So I want you all to give your take on it.
I can go first, then maybe Aparajita can add the
Yes,
like in
yes, Aditya.
context to it.
Yes, yes.
See, I myself as an HR professional, definitely see as long as you're trained, certified, and certified to be a panelist on IC. So there is a difference. A regular HR versus a trained IC professional, also an HR. If you're in the second category, definitely yes. But if you're in the first category, I would say no.
Yeah, well put up there, I think.
Yeah, so just to add to that, yes, there is no impediment. Legally, there is no impediment. But as Aditya very well classified, that if you are a trained person, you can be there. And sometimes, however, I think it may happen. So Aditya would be a better, expert on this to enlighten us on. Maybe the company may not have somebody who's trained for this, right? Any HR professional, because smaller organizations, as we know, a lot of time their HR is also outsourced or something of that sort. So they might not be. So legally, there is of course no impediment. But going by what Aditya said, if you are a trained HR into for the IC role, then of course. But again,
See,
if you even if you are not, then your interference in the entire thing should be less.
that's right. So, we are seeing a lot of COEs coming into India and they're setting up their local presence. So at the beginning, it is highly impossible to have so many people as part of IC. There will be an auto obligation on the HR persons to first get trained and play that neutral role.
Mm, absolutely. And that's important. I think I'd like to highlight that if an HR person is able to separate their role as organization, because somewhere, like if I'm the head HR and I'm part of the IC, I might start thinking in company benefit, or I might start thinking I'm trained to think towards the organizational welfare and not individual welfare of parties. So if I am able to separate that role, if I'm, I think, understanding correctly from both of you, if I'm able to separate myself from my role as HR and take a separately different inquiry as an IC professional? Like how am I segregating and then supporting at the same time? Because there can be a conflict of interest if an HR person is also part of the internal committee, if they are not well trained to separate their roles and duties as HR. Because often I've also noticed that HR professionals have made or broken the cases. In real experience, I think you all have seen it, that if a good HR can support in a way that they can actually help us with the life cycle of the case in so much, with so much more precision, and if they're maintaining the confidentiality, maintaining the provisions, and parallelly functioning with the IC in, say, sometimes identifying of respondent or creation of MOMs, even everything that we sometimes the IC cannot themselves do everything. So HRs do help, and then having an HR member as an IC, they need to be able to segregate that. Okay, right now I'm playing the role of an IC member. Right now, I'm playing the role of an HR professional. So I think those are very, very important. And based on that, a company can take a call. With that, I think this brings out my next question. That at what point does HR support become interference in an internal committee's functioning? Has this happened in your experience? Any stories?
Yeah, I can see. Usually, right, like in an organization setup, HR department is perceived as like, for from an employee standpoint, they can go and discuss anything. So there have been cases where HR professionals who are not trained or couldn't manage their capabilities to cut between POSH and the normal HR stuff. Uh, so they started conducting preliminary inquiries, started gathering the information. By the time they reaches the IC, it's more or less like diluted version of it, or maybe a differently perceived version of it has gone to the ICs. So one thing that can be avoided is definitely conducting preliminary inquiries, even if employee sees you as the first point of contact. And yes, of course, it is better to divert them to the communication channel that you have created so that complaints can directly go to the internal committees.
Hmm.
Correct. As I initially said, it should not be investigative. The role of HR is not investigative. They have to maintain that independence of the IC. They have to, ensure that everything is done fairly. That is where actually their role becomes more important. So instead of influencing, they should be more facilitating. I think they
Yeah.
should facilitate the entire process.
Absolutely. I also think that, for example, HR professionals can definitely be IC members if they are trained in that way to separate their roles. And these are some very good IC members I have come across who are also, like, I think Aditya is also part of the IC or is going to be part of the IC and supports in cases um, quite brilliantly, if I may add. So I have noticed that some HR professionals are actually very, very thorough with how they support and how they are able to manage a case without letting their HR duties come in between this. But at the same time, can we say put an HR professional? Like, I think there's also a chat question coming through that HR person is basically having a myth that if they are involved in IC, their importance in the organization is more. So now HR wants to be the PO and is not letting a senior level employee become presiding officer. So is this something that talks in the negative of how HR's existence can impact or create impediment in the IC? Aparajita, what do you think legally on this as well?
Uh, See, HR's role, we cannot rule out. We cannot say that, we can make HR secondary where such things pop up in an organization. Because generally, if the complaint is brought up, most of the time HR is the first contact person from where it flows, right? So if we cannot actually put them in the negative, saying that they are not qualified, to be a part of it, because as I said, there is no legal impediment, at least not that I am aware of. If somebody in this esteemed room knows of it, may definitely enlighten us on that. But as far as they are concerned, again, indirectly, they are the ones who are going to support the IC. Aditya, I think, can lead me forward on this question, where his experience comes in and how what he feels about this.
Um, yeah, definitely. Could you just repeat that once? What is that? What is
Uh,
that
so
question?
the question was basically about whether an HR professional can insist on being the presiding officer, saying that I should be the presiding officer and not a senior level employee because it increases my importance in the company.
Yeah, see, I definitely that shouldn't be the case. If you're a seasoned HR professional, so you can do a lot more in an organization setting. There are so many other areas where employees would need you, like talent management, compensation management. There are so many ways you can create a lot of impact and make your value to the worth that you're called for. But coming to the POSH, definitely there are certain expectations, and I expect all HR professionals to lean on to the statutory obligations.
Yes. So I think I totally hear you on this. Like, because there is a conflict of interest, it would be better if they are not the presiding officer. However, their role in the IC, especially like Aditya mentioned, for small companies where HR is the person who is trained to basically handle such situations, and they are the first ones who train themselves, and then they start training other members to be part of the IC. So I think it's very very crucial to see this demarcation, and sometimes that insisting is what kind of shows the lack of experience of the HR person. If they are saying that the HR ek to has no legal right to say that I will be the presiding officer.
Yeah.
While there is no legal impediment for IC members to have one or two HR members in the committee, I often say avoid putting HR and your legal team people in the team, in the IC, unless they are specifically trained to be IC members. Because legal people, I'm also a lawyer myself, and I know that as an in-house lawyer, you will think for your company first. As an HR person, you also are taking the recommendation and implementing it once the recommendation is made. So you can't give yourself a recommendation and implement it yourself. So that's where the conflict comes in. So ideally, it's better if they are supporting the IC, but presiding officer is a senior female employee of your organization, and no qualms about it. Don't put legal people there, don't put your HR members there. Though I see legal and HR people often are great support because they understand the law or they understand the policy better. So I think that demarcates it a little bit. I also see a bunch of questions coming through for us. So
So
before we
yeah,
start
there is
taking,
one more small thing is that even the employer, they need to be sensitive about, the formation of the IC committee. They should also, because see, sometimes what happens, as you said, the legal will think about the company, the HR will also think about the company. But that is where even the employers needs to be sensitized, where we do all these, trainings and everything in companies, etc., where they need to be told that you stop at least influencing your own people, because I see committees for the welfare of your employees. It is not about egos. It is not about, office politics. It's all about the right people, the justice being seen and being done as well. Both are important.
absolutely. Yes. I think that's a very crucial element, that the ego plays a big role sometimes. And I have also seen this sometimes that, okay, as soon as the case has come, there will be somebody who is putting pressure on the IC that terminate this person right away. But they don't want to go through the entire POSH process, which is established in place. Or sometimes I have also seen the opposite, that I see is giving the recommendation, but HR head is saying, no, no, this is a very senior person. We don't want to.
Right.
So somewhere that is a place where your egos or your own internal issues as an HR come through into the cases. So now I had a question. This is something that has been requested by a lot of people sometimes when they are not part of the IC. Can the HR person participate in witness interviews, evidence collection, or settlement discussions that are happening with the internal committee?
You
Aditya?
want me to go first?
Yes,
Okay. So
yes.
I can share my perspective, right? Like, again, I tie back to what qualification you have to sit in the witness interviews, right? Like, if you're wearing that neutral hat and got trained as an IC, definitely yes. But otherwise, I would say a strict no.
I hold the same view. Thank you, Aditya. So I hold the same view that, the HR should abstain from doing these things because this is basically, of course, the function of the IC. And at times it may, influence the outcome which we are looking at. So yes, I have the same answer as Aditya. They should not get into, all of these activities. Yes.
Absolutely. Even for like sometimes I have been told that is it whose question, like I think there was a chat question also, that is it the HR's duty to collect evidence? Is it the HR's duty to conduct the MOMs? Now, ideally, the law says that when we are giving the appointment letter to an IC member, we mention their duties. And part of those duties are also assisting the presiding officer in any kind of help that they may require. So an IC member can also prepare quickly the MOMs and get them signed by the parties there and then, or we can appoint a separate scribe who can sit and write the MOMs and can get these signed by the parties. Because I get it that you have to collect the meetings and sometimes the IC members are busy in questioning. So one IC member usually stays dormant, just collecting the information and not really themselves participating unless they have a specific question to ask. That really helps. So they can assist from the HR department if IC is overburdened. But ideally, IC should be definitely taking care of all the minutes and anything that they need to basically conduct for the particular case. Now, there are also sometimes updates asked by the HR department stating, give us an update on the POSH case. Now, you are not entitled to any updates on the POSH case while the inquiry is ongoing. Um, you will directly get the recommendation, and that recommendation has to come to you within 90 days. If it's going beyond, then you can definitely ask that what is happening, a case was filed, right? So these are some things that come from, I think, our own understanding of how we have been navigating POSH. Now, if a person is going to the HR saying that I have a POSH complaint, which is the common situation that happens, how should a HR professional react in that situation? Because should they do something about it? How do they navigate this whole situation?
Yeah.
I
So I can take that. See, definitely when someone is reaching out to you, you cannot say an abrupt no that you're not qualified to take. But at the same time, you need to strike a very good balance of not going in depth of what they're going to say to you. At the same time, empathy is also very important. They come to you, the entire POSH runs on trust. If someone reaches out to you, it means like they have trust on you to share that sensitive information, right? So you need to play that balancing act, show empathy at the same time, make the person aware that there is a confidential channel through which they can reach out. So that's one tip that I can share.
absolutely. Prajita, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just want to add one important aspect, which is confidentiality.
Yeah.
If they reach out to the HR, I think HR should definitely act with empathy, as Aditya said, and at the same time maintain confidentiality on the issue till the time that the entire process is put in place. Because the moment you come to an HR within seconds cannot, it's not a magic wand. So definitely things will take a little while. But in the meantime, what the HR should at least ensure is that confidentiality is maintained And that is the reason why, Meenakshi, I think what you said was correct, that, you cannot ask for an update. That is also for this reason, because there is so much going on within the IC that putting it out to anyone, whether it is HR or not, is not the right thing to do. So that is the only thing that I wanted to add to what Aditya said.
Yeah. So, Aparajita, because we're also talking about the confidentiality. So, what if it is a complaint against somebody in the senior management and someone has reached out to the HR or head HR, in fact?
Hmm.
Uh, then there is a influence of, say, senior management or power influence on a lot of situations that happen for the IC. So, how does an IC member navigate that?
That's the most tricky part. And a lot of times it so happens, and with all the HR people and the legal people in the room, they would all have one story or the other to, talk about how senior, whenever it is about the senior management, even the employer is a bit on that side, because they don't want to lose a good talent that they have, or somebody who's extremely influential. Again, going back to the same thing, that neutrality has to be maintained. Whether it is senior, junior, of the same level or whatever, the neutrality is the most important aspect, and of course, confidentiality, as I said. So, in both the cases, the navigation has to be the same, whether it is a senior person or a person who is of a lesser value in the company. And in fact, when there is a senior person, you need to be more careful.
Yeah.
Your responsibility as an HR increases when there is a senior person, because it's a tricky situation for you to navigate at that stage. But what you have to only do is ensure that your IC is in place, ensure that everything is taken properly to the IC and left in the hands of IC. Please do not try to try to influence anyone in the company at that stage, or in just to earn those brownie points from your employer. Please do not go to your MD and CEO and inform that, oh, something has happened in the background, now you need to douse it, or do something about it. So please maintain neutrality as far as complaints are concerned, because whether it is
Excellent.
correct or not, in any case, it will come to the fore once the investigation is done. So why even judge whether the senior person must have done or not done?
Yeah. So I would like to add on that. Like, this is definitely a sensitive scenario. So if you have to look at like how posh committees earn their respected companies, right? Like, uh, we need to be very sure, irrespective of who the person is, treating the process in the same way is very, very important. It's more like, it's a saying like, treating the process, not the person. That's what we need to do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is a hot stove principle in which it says that when you are sitting in a IC and giving decision, then ideally you should not, the decision should feel impersonal. So when you are touching a hot stove, you burnt your hand. Will you blame the stove or will you blame yourself for getting the hand burnt? So it's, I think that, Aditya, that when we are giving these decisions, they have to be definitely given in such a way that the parties feel like it's not personal, but it's actually something where they are getting a disciplinary action, regardless of their position. And there are some good IC members who have also, like, there was once a situation with a steel company, very famous on Twitter. This girl came and raised a situation on social media, and the IC team responded over there, stating that we take such incidents very seriously, regardless of the seniority of the person. Please reach out to us, and we will independently investigate. And we reassure you that we will take your claims seriously. So that allowed the person to actually reach out to the internal committee and file a complaint. And so it's that where the IC's independence actually helps in creating that smoothness in how the inquiry is supposed to be conducted. Now, there was one more thing I was thinking when we were talking about prevention, right? So with the recent incidents, like I think we also had a lot of media incident which was highlighted of POSH, where there was no POSH complaint, but there are situations of sometimes different kinds of issues are happening. Say, a lot of gender discrimination happening on the floor, or some kind of boys clubs and girls clubs being formed, or some too many cultural issues that HR professional is noticing. So then, does the HR play any role there in terms of, because there are no sexual harassment complaints, but maybe other kinds of misconduct complaints are increasing, and that is also resulting in, say, one or two sexual harassment complaints coming along with it. So is there a role of HR professionals in, should they do something in these situations, to put it bluntly, if there are too many cases coming of other kinds and not sexual harassment?
Yeah, so definitely yes. As an HR professional, you need to see the patterns of what type of cases that are coming up. If you see there is a particular pattern which is arising out of a certain, say, what Meenakshi had highlighted, definitely yes, we have to be super blunt about bringing in some guardrails to mitigate some of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also how um, we are, I think I've had scenarios like these where we actually did POSH trainings, but still the cases were not reducing. And there was such a divide between the employees, very young employees, and all of them were like first job. So they had made boys groups. And now these groups are creating hostile work environment for all the women in the office. So how are these groups affecting? Like, even I'm not saying just the men were creating problems, even all the girls and boys, they had a gender divide within the company. And anyone talks to anyone, rumors will be made instantly. And the floor was getting toxic. So a gender sensitization session, respectful workplace session, along with the POSH session helped us sort of create an environment where they are understanding that, okay, we have these biases we are coming into workplace with, and that reduced our number of complaints also. So what is it that is the culture? I think that is very, very important to like sort of also remember as IC members. Now there are also situations where the complaint is against the employer, right? Now, Aprajita, I think as a legal professional, the employer definition is something that the POSH Act is still navigating. So, do you have any insights on this, on what to do if the complaint is against an employer?
Yes, a tough one. So, yes, when it comes to the employer, definitely, you have the mechanism is the same, but it definitely becomes difficult when, the boss itself is involved. There is one other concept, which is the local complaint committee, which is for less than, if you have the number X number of employees, and then you go to that committee, and from there is a recommendation. So that is another way in which this is managed, which is a big topic to cover because the mechanisms also change. However, uh, if anything of this sort is happening, I think legally, again, your IC committee does have the powers to deal with it and should be, seen in that light. As far as the legal aspect is concerned, as I told you, that, there is one more mechanism which can be worked through, which is the district level mechanism. Aditya would want to add to that.
So definitely not on the district level, but see, this is certainly a very tricky scenario if the complaint is against the employer. I agree with you, Aparajita. See, IC has to do its job, irrespective of who the respondent is. These kind of scenarios, if there is any possibility to expand the possibility of bringing additional neutral members from, say, maybe a broader company, but under that, if they have sub companies, we can bring in, neutral people from there to investigate the matter neutrally. Say if it
Yeah.
is Tata Group, right? Like it has
Mhm.
Tata Sons, it has Tata Motors, etc., etc. You can bring in people from Tata Motors to investigate the matter so that it's dealt in a fair manner.
Hmm. So yeah, having IC members from, so in a lot of these situations where companies have multiple branches, we also
Right.
say that especially in remote and hybrid environments, we will have one central IC team and local representatives from each office. So this allows you to at least have a person who is trained and overseeing everything. And at the same time, the local representatives create trust with the people within that particular branch that, okay, we have a representative of our own in the internal committee. And I think that really helps in creating that trust as well. So I think that's really helpful, Aditya, as an insight also. Now, what if like, are there, where is it that like, the legal stance comes in, Aparajita, where do the HR, does the HR have a right to the report, the copy of the report, or do they only get recommendations on what the internal committee has decided? Do they get then access to the entire MOMs and copies of all the details of the case? Can they ask for it?
Yes, they can, because ultimately, see, the action has to be taken by the HR, where whatever the recommendations are, and based on what has been decided by the IC, they definitely can ask for a copy in case if they wish to have a hand on it.
Yeah, but there is one caveat to that,
Mm.
which all HR professionals need to think about. If so, I'm just correlating to the previous discussion points that we had. If the person is a top talent, or if the person is a senior member, just by accessing the data, or just by you getting the right to execute the action, you should not tone down the recommendation that was shared by the IC. It's always important to execute the recommendation that was shared, irrespective of whoever is the respondent.
Yes, absolutely. I think also do copy of the report as per the law. It just says that parties have a copy. They have a right to the copy of the report, and still there are practices in which people often give redacted versions or only share the recommendations of the IC, and often these get challenged in appeal. That how was I not given a copy of the report? And at the same time, in some companies, there is a strong practice that they will only give the IC will only give the recommendations, the decision that they have communicated that, okay, the respondent needs to be given a level 3 warning, the company needs to conduct a POSH training for this particular team, these parties need to be changed. Whatever recommendation, only recommendation is communicated to the department and not the entire report, because confidentiality is maintained by the IC with the names, details of witnesses and cases. So, how do we, what are these practices? How legal are these practices is something that, Prajita, if you can pitch in here. I don't know if I'm deviating from the conversations, but I just thought about it. So, yeah.
As you rightly said, Meenakshi, because once these reports come in hand of someone, these are again confidential reports, and we generally want only the recommendations to be handed over. But if the IC itself feels that they can share it, or they are willing to share it, then they may. But confidence, because of the issue of confidentiality, it is generally the only the final verdict of the IC which is shared, and then based on that they can make their recommendations. That, as you said, the whether it has to be a level 3, or whether it has to be a training to be given, or just a warning to be given, or final termination. So these will all come from that report. Yes, of course, it is always debatable whether the complainant is entitled to the entire set of investigation that has been done. Because tomorrow, yes, if he is wanting to, appeal against it, there has to be something with him. So these are all, and sometimes it also happens that it is upon the way in which the company has been conducting itself. That is also one of the factors which come into play. Legally, we always are entitled to the documents which, if it is my complaint, I'm always entitled to what the investigation has been, whether it is favorable or not. So
Yeah,
that definitely would come into play.
absolutely. Yes, I think I have to pitch in here before I move to the next question.
No, I'm good.
Mm. Okay. So one question I was just asking that what are the most common mistakes organizations make? Like if we can get like a play on what are the most common mistakes that they do, organizations do when they are involving an HR professional. Being an HR person who is involved in POSH cases, Aditya, I think um, you might be aware of any common mistakes. So would you like to throw some light on
Common mistakes. See,
it?
definitely the preliminary inquiry part. I see that as one of the very, very common mistakes. HR perceive themselves as the first chain of authority to deal with all this. Second is sometimes like, misinterpretation of interim relief or interim measures that are advised by IC. So they fail to, implement them immediately because they think maybe, so for example, if employees has to put on a garden leave, if manager says like we are struggling with shrinkage, it's highly impossible, but we can move the person to different team. So if HR manages that, like if they shouldn't think that yeah, moving the person to a different team will solve the problem. That shouldn't be the case. The IC has already advised the interim relief to be a garden leave. That has to be executed as per the guidance given by IC. We should not take decisions uh, depending on other background circumstances that comes into our role.
Absolutely. So making your own independent decisions or
Independent decision.
involving in a preliminary inquiry before it goes to the IC that we'll decide whether it's posh or not. Let the IC determine the jurisdiction and redirect the complaint to the HR department ideally if it is not posh. And if it is posh, the IC is the one who decides the jurisdiction. And I've also, this is the recent case also because of which I brought up that having preliminary inquiries is again, like, I think very important common mistake you highlighted, Aditya. So now if I see there is a question in the chat, let's look at some of the questions. So if neutral members are required, does IC have the right to request for those maybe from another branch? As you mentioned, Aditya. So who pays for it? I think IC members are not entitled to a salary, unfortunately, as per the law. But
Yeah.
yes. So can we ask from other branches and who is paying
Yeah.
for these?
See,
Well,
at least to my exposure, I don't think IC members are paid for this. It's a job that brings in a lot of ethical pride to the person who is doing or doing this organization for a purpose. So it's a purpose-driven job, but definitely not a monetized one.
yeah, there was a monetary aspect. Sometimes I've actually seen IC members struggle so much because they're balancing their regular responsibilities and because there's mostly senior leaders sitting in the IC committees and they're also balancing so many other responsibilities and so many cases at the same time. So I wish they were getting some extra payment from uh it. But yeah, no stipend can be given legally also, I'm guessing. Aparajita, you can rebut
Yes,
me.
no stipend legally. And second is that if there is any such issue, where you want to bring in somebody from another branch, nothing precludes you from doing that if the person fulfills the statutory requirement. If you want XYZ requirement, like, for a trained HR professional. So if you have in another branch and you want to, maybe maintain some kind of extra neutrality so that he's not from the same workplace, not influenced, all of that, then I don't think that there is any impediment in calling someone from the other branch within the own company.
Yeah, and coming to that neutrality aspect, definitely that person should be again a certified IC member.
Yes. So as I said, if he
Yes, yes.
fulfills the statutory requirements or the requirements per se, so I think they can be brought in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I also, there were a lot of questions and discussions around employer, who is the employer. So there are multiple case laws. I just wanted to highlight a few case laws, X versus Academy, And this is the latest 2025 case law on it. And there were also a bunch of cases which said that employer is the highest authority in the organization. So even if there is board, like even if the complaint is against your CEO of the company, and there is a board which can give a recommendation against that CEO, then let the internal committee handle the complaint. Whereas there were some cases where it was mentioned that even a head HR is somebody who will be coming under the definition of employer, and hence case should go to LC. So often it is now different high courts have taken different stances on who is the employer and who is the highest authority, when should it go to the local committee. Now, ideally, if the IC feels like they can independently investigate without any pressure, they should take the complaint, and they should definitely not say that, okay, we don't have locus, we will not handle it. If there is anyone above the person who is complained against, if anyone is against the above the respondent, then the complaint should be taken by the IC members. Otherwise, it should definitely, if the complainant feels it's easier to go to LC, they are more unbiased, then let them go to the LC. But if LC rejects, saying there is one person above them, so go back, then IC should not be doing this, that, oh, now you're coming to us, you didn't come to us before. So I think that's basically what input I wanted to add to whatever has been discussed already. Now, with that, I think any best practices, Aparajita, first we'll take it from you, and then Aditya, on what is your thought on the topic overall, to be or not to be involved, HR's role in POSH cases, Aparajita.
So from the legal angle, firstly, you definitely should have a good policy. Draft a good policy for the company so that it is the guiding light whenever such an issue comes up. You don't have to go back and forth on it. You know what is to be done. This is a clear-cut policy of the company, which is completely compliant with the laws. That will help you great deal over there itself. Most of your problems will be solved. It can also, you can, clearly envision everybody's role and responsibility. So these things are going to help. Second is, I think training your employees, training your senior management, training your HR in such situations, for preparing them for such situations, basically. Because when you're training, you're preparing people for unfortunate incidents that might happen, if not today, tomorrow, that will be extremely essential in maintaining all those things that we have spoken about: confidentiality, neutrality, creating the balance. So these are things. And when you are drafting your policy, then itself create that clear reporting system as well. Because whenever a new employee joins in, you hand over the HR policy, you hand over XYZ policy, you give them the leave, and all of those policies you hand over. That is the time when you need to also sensitize them that this is the policy that we follow in case if you are in a situation of this kind. So I guess these are the few things or good practices which any organization can follow.
Absolutely. I think that was really, really helpful to also have like the spirit to be captured in the letter of law, that you have to bring it within your policies, and also tailor your policies to, I think, your own requirement. Like
Yes.
every organization will have different requirements. So are we mentioning it all and clarifying it to people, like that we are extending our policies here, or we are making sure that we are keep explaining certain things. Like I really believe policy should have even a highlight on what is sexual harassment, even though the act already defines it. I think these are elements that one should know. Aditya, now I think over to you. Any best practices that you would want to highlight? Because we've, I think, covered most of the things that were in the chat as well.
Yeah. So see, best practices, and connecting to the topic, to be, not to be, right? Like definitely to be uh, part of the process until it is prevention and prohibition. That is the two areas where you can bring in a lot of value and meaning to the overall process. Not to be, if you are not certified, please don't crave to sit in those discussions. If you're interested, please take the certification and so on. Coming to the best practices, most of the cases, right, like the definition of workplace is something which is people are not so sure of.
Hmm.
Say office outings, say team outings, discussing on internal the chat medians. People don't know uh, what is the definition of workplace. See, in case if you, as Aprachita said, when you do trainings, this is one element that you need to very clearly and categorically highlight. If possible, bring in more examples and case studies so that people understand the where the root causes and the workplace connection. Uh, and the second best practice is inclusivity, right? Like include employees. So if you make them do, they will follow it, is what I believe, especially in the prevention side. Say in my previous company, we had role plays done by our frontline agents. They did it so well. Those were circulated and socialized, and after that, we saw a lot of positivity in terms of like automatically the cases got reduced. They understood because their colleagues, their peers have enacted certain things. So
Yeah.
that's a place where we can bring in more inclusivity in terms of involving them so that they're part of the journey.
Absolutely. I think innovative trainings and innovative ways to engage people in the posh, because we are dealing with the generation that has a 5 minute attention span right now. I think not just the new generation, but even we have lost our attention spans over time
Yeah,
by overuse of internet and all of this. So to make sure that they're engaged through these trainings is also something that is really, really, I think, not stressed enough. Now there's also like one statement in the chat saying HRs are usually lowballing the external member just to do a tick mark activity. Now I believe that it has been a mixed experience for me as an external member over last 7 years, that sometimes HR members have supported thoroughly in cases where they have gone established with transport teams and like whatever required evidence is needed from internally from the committee. They assist the committee in ways that actually is beyond imagination sometimes, that the HR person is literally like a angel in disguise. And sometimes they do try to put me just as a nominal member, or there are situations where they've conducted their own inquiry and they've decided an outcome and they have not let it come into posh. Or sometimes they are telling the complainant, ask for informal inquiry, don't do a full inquiry. Or HR members will make sure that they are not involving the external member enough so that if a complaint is against a senior management, then there is some bias happening. So these are all examples that have happened. And we as external members have often pushed back in these situations that no, here we don't want your involvement. So that's why I said HR members can make or break the case. Anything from your end, Aditya and Aprajita, that you would like to add to that, because that statement is quite the pain that we have dealt with in our lives sometimes. So yeah.
See, when to be or not to be comes in, it's also about accountability. You are accountable towards the employees and the employer as well. So, maintaining a balance on your accountability so that you do not cause harm to someone who's really aggrieved, because this is the basic mechanism that law has put in place after years of, tests and trials and tribulations that have happened in this sphere. This is what has been in place. So now it all depends on how we take this forward, how much the highest leadership in the company, is committed to being fair. So we see unfair complaints also, where it is motivated complaints, which we call them, right? So therefore this accountability comes into picture, and have a robust system in place. I'm sure things will be easy and smooth for everyone in the system.
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Aditya.
I go with Aparajita. uh, see, it's like, how I see stuff is like, the process is important irrespective of anything else. So that's something that we need to do.
Absolutely.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some situations are also being highlighted here for us, apart from the conversation we just had, where HRs are actually creating problems. There's also complainants who will go and say that I don't want to file a written complaint, but expect the HR to resolve it for them. So here, I think an HR prerogative needs to go to employees that any case of wash has to be a written complaint to the IC. And if they are saying that we want to, you only to handle it, then let the IC know that you are doing a preliminary inquiry because there is no complaint written from the person, and have a conversation with the parties. But ideally, as a preventive measure, just have a conversation, document this, and make sure that the IC has thorough documentation of what has happened. Involve an IC member, especially on a no name basis, if the person doesn't want to reveal their identity even to the IC. But let the IC members ideally speak to the person if possible, to convince them to write a complaint and give it to the IC rather than handling from the HR happening. Because while people request these things, we need to let them know that for you to get an appropriate remedy, you should give a complaint to the IC, and IC will be unbiased. They often do this because they don't trust the IC that they will resolve the matter, and they say that, okay, you only handle it now, please, like HR, you handle it. So these situations often we need to, as HR professionals, we also need to establish trust within the party for the IC and make sure that the IC is getting some kind of leeway to like sort of help the person in filing a written complaint, assist them in writing the complaint to the IC, reassure them of the process. I think that's all we can do. I hope that we've taken all the questions and answered. I also want to take a minute to thank Aparajita and Aditya for being so, I think, candid with your answers and bringing in your expertise as legal and business HR people management professional experiences. So this has been a rich conversation. So thank you so much for being a part of today's discussion. Any other questions, please reach out to us at Kelp and we will definitely be able to take that up. And if you want me to specifically reach out to anyone, I would love to do that also. So thank you, everyone. I hope we answered all the questions. And any closing notes, Aprajita and Aditya, over to you.
No, thank you so much, Meenakshi. It was a lovely experience, chatting with you on this very, very important topic, and look forward. And plus, me being the legal person here, anybody who would ever need need any kind of legal advice on this, please feel free to connect with us. We would be happy to help. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Kelp. Looking forward to many such sessions. Thank you.
The pleasure
Yeah,
is ours.
it's definitely an enriching learning experience to me as well. So thanks for this wonderful platform, Kelp. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Aditya, for agreeing to be a part of this. And thank you, Aprajita. I really think that this is how we shape our future conversations, and this is how we set best practices by having these conversations. So it's important. And thank you, everyone who have attended this session. You and your questions make it richer, the discussion. So thank you so much for being part of these ILA Kelp webinars every month. With that, we'll take your leave for now. Have a very great weekend that is coming up. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.